It all starts with the grain. We do get our malt in from Warminster. That gets loaded up, so when we're ready to mash, we turn on the mill. The grain will get ground by the mill, so that's going to come over, and as that comes over, it gets met by 2,100 litres of 63.5 degree water. So you're looking to gelatinize the starches in the barley, the malt. Goes into the mash tun, 63.5 degrees. Then we give it a good stir, about 5 minutes, and then we let it sit for an hour. During that time, that's when the sugars are going to start to be broken down into manageable units for the yeast during the fermentation phase. It's at about 63.5 degrees in the mash tun. It needs to be at about 20 degrees in the fermenter, so we run it off through a heat exchanger. After about an hour, the level will have come down and the grain bed will start to be exposed. At that point, we then do something called a sparge. So we put on another 850 litres through the little ring at the top of the mash tun. So that'll just be putting on fresh water. That'll help rinse residual sugars out of the grain. The second water, as we call it, will chase the first through the whole process, and those two will both be collected in entirety in the fermenter, and that will equal just about 2,600 litres. Once that's through, we then pump on a third water, and that'll be about 88 degrees. So the third water is just to really capture any residual sugars that could be in the malt, and that will then get transferred back to a hot liquor tank and saved for the next brew. During the fermentation, after about 10 minutes of running into the fermenter, we will have gained enough liquid at the bottom of the fermenter. At that point, we pitch our yeasts. That'll then finish probably 3 hours. Our fermentations are just shy of 4 days. After that 4 days, it will go into the wash still. So the temperature, by the time we turn the steam on of the wash, will be about 60 degrees. So it's only got to raise to kind of the high 80s before it'll start boiling. At that point, it'll start coming through in the spirit safe, and it's called low wines. From that, we'll have got just about 800 litres of low wines, and that'll be about 23-24%, give or take a little bit. So we take that low wines the following shift, and we put it into the spirit still, alongside the 4 shots and feints from the previous spirit distillation. We have this 7-minute heads cut, and then we switch to hearts, and that'll be at about 75.5% alcohol. So we'll get 250 litres at about 75%. Once we've got our nice clean fruity spirit, we then cask it. We use a variety of casks. Bourbon, first fill, we've got STR, and then we use a variety of sherry casks. So those three form the core. They're probably 99% of what we do. The STR is a really fundamentally important barrel for us. It stands for shaved, toasted, and recharred. So it's ex-red wine American oak casks that are then shaved, like I say, toasted and charred. It's a very active cask, and it gives very fruity, spicy, sugared notes to a whiskey. Having these STR casks allows a great deal of mature character to ally with our fruity, clean spirit that doesn't need a huge amount of time to oxidize and so on in the cask, and you get a very balanced, very mature whiskey at a surprisingly young age. For our flagship, which is a 3-year-old, that is a mix of 70% STR cask aged whiskey and 30% bourbon first fill. So 3 months prior to a bottling, we would disgorge the casks, mix them together in their 70-30 mix. So we dilute to 50% and then put them back into cask for the final 3 months. And we feel that marriage definitely helps bring everything together, just creates a much more harmonious blend, really. We've got the newly built bottling hall. In there we've got 2 lines. We try and dedicate one to whiskey and one to gin. So yeah, we do the gin and the whiskey on site.